Welcome back to Bold TV. I'm David Grasso here with another episode of the Millennial Minute. You've already heard from our guests, Ajay Bruno and Nate Lerner. Hey guys, so you're both going to be taking the vaccine. So most importantly, let's start with Nate. Why do you think people are discouraged from doing it? Does it have anything to do with the timeline of how fast it rolled out?
Yeah, it's a couple of factors. I think the timeline for sure. I mean, the timeline is something that even I think that we need to be a little cautious about and aware of. But I believe it's been very thoroughly tested. I believe they wouldn't have rolled it out if they weren't 100% confident in it. And, in normal circumstances, yes, be aware of that. But at the same time, what concerns me is that we have these growing factions within our country and with our society that are really very just anti-establishment to their core, where they question anything from the media, anything from the government, anything that seems to be mainstream. We have massive, large, growing communities of anti-vaxxers. If the QAnon folks, conspiracy theorists are spreading like wildfire online. And that really makes for a perfect storm with something like the vaccine, where you already have this reasonable concern from the speed, and then combined with what I just mentioned, that's just a recipe for disaster. So I think we need to be very, very clear that despite the speed, this is a vaccine that we are very confident in, very safe, and is really about not just protecting yourself, but the greater good as well. And I think all rhetoric around the vaccine needs to be very cognizant of that as a result.
So AJ, you were talking about how this has been politicized, right? And especially speaking as a conservative, why do you feel like it's important for conservative politicians and other influential people in the community to announce that they are going to get the vaccine and maybe even do it on camera just to be safe there?
It's shocking the sort of people that I see come out and say, peddle these conspiracy theories, or talk about how they don't think people should get it, or for whatever reason. And it's getting a bit out of control. And that extends to a lot of people in politics also. So if you're going to be a responsible politician, I think no matter what your ideology is, what party, that's something they need to say publicly and out loud. And we're not really hearing that. And frankly, it's making everyone who's supposed to be on my side look very bad. And people like that probably shouldn't be in office. So if they're not going to come out and speak strongly about this, because we need a situation where we have people voluntarily wanting to do this, and a large majority of them doing that. If we don't have people in leadership positions in public, in the public eye doing this, then we're going to have a serious problem, and it's not going to work the way we want it to. So they have a responsibility, and they need to meet it.
So Nate, you were talking about that you feel that vaccines are important, but that they shouldn't be mandatory, right? Are you including students, teachers, healthcare workers, anyone else in politics, public figures? You still stand by the fact that it shouldn't be mandatory, correct?
Well, I think this is where I'm comfortable saying I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. I'm someone who takes that information and presents it to the public and tries to convince them to listen to the experts. And so whatever the experts are saying is best, I'm going to go with in this one. I think if you are a healthcare worker, if you're someone who works with people who are at high risk, if you are someone who has a very essential role in government, in national security, then yeah, there probably should be a law mandating those people get it. I would need to see more. I would need to see some evidence. Like, for example, with teachers, we've seen a lot of evidence that schools actually, the virus doesn't spread there. Initially, we weren't sure. We were cautious. But we've learned since then it's really about more indoor dining and extended exposure in indoor areas, and schools haven't been as much of a cause of spread. That being said, though, I still believe in very much in the government pushing laws that, for example, would prevent misinformation from spreading. So I love that Facebook and Twitter, for example, have stepped up and banned disinformation and misinformation about the vaccine from their platforms. And I think that's 100% the way to go. I'm all for free speech, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. And that's exactly what you're doing by spreading misinformation about the vaccine. So I think that should be mandated.
How do you feel about that, AJ? Because that's a little bit of a slippery slope, right? Banning certain types of speech, mandating vaccines, where do we draw the line between individual freedom and collective public health right now?
Well, I think free speech is important. So when they're censoring people or banning them, unless they're saying something which is just, dangerous on a level that could actually kill people, I think people should be allowed to say whatever they want. There's the First Amendment. So I think we've gone a little too far with disrupting free speech, as opposed to making it mandatory. I mean, look, I don't think you should force people at the point of a gun, but having said that, they can get a little bit creative. For instance, if you want to fly, you have to be vaccinated because a lot of people are going to want to do that. And if they're not able to fly, they might get the vaccine. So something like that, make it so that they're encouraged to get it, but at the same time, you have to preserve freedom in this country. So you can't force people, you can't point a gun at them, but we need to find some ways where we have enough people taking it that we achieve that herd immunity that we need, because otherwise we're going to keep living in this ridiculous situation, and I think no one wants to do that. So.
Yeah, Nate, do you agree with those types of policies? Should JetBlue, American Airlines, Southwest, all these people, all these airlines, maybe theme parks, any other sort of thing where we have an ID that we're vaccinated and that we can go to these places?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say specifically where we should draw the line there, but I really like that thought where it's, if there is something like flying, like traveling abroad, like going to a big indoor venue where you need to get the vaccine, I think that's a great way to encourage people to get it. A great way to show that, look, this isn't just about you; it's about everybody else who's in this in this position with you. And really making a clear statement about the importance of this vaccine and saying, okay, if you don't want the vaccine, that's fine. Just like if you don't have to buy a car, you don't have to get car insurance, but you can't legally drive without car insurance. So, there is a freedom of choice there, but it limits your options. So you have to make that choice. And I think that's a much better way and a much better approach than mandating the virus across the board.
Well, just so you all know, I really appreciate the spirited debate. And I also will be getting the vaccine whenever it is available here in Orlando, Florida. And we are starting to get our first vaccinated people just recently now. So on that note, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
And thank you all for watching. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Parler, or wherever else you consume social media. Most of our handles are @BoldTV. On that note, we'll see you next time.